Welcome and thank you for joining Assemblywoman and the representative from the New York Institute and Special Education, the Lavelle School for the Blind, and St. Joseph's School for the Deaf for a virtual town hall. Unfortunately, St. Joseph is unable to be with us today, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to talk about their issues as well. My name is Heather Evans, and I will serve as your moderator today. Before we begin, we want to go over some of the instructions. We encourage you to participate in the event. However, anyone engaging in inappropriate or vulgar behavior will be removed from the event. The host will set the screen to gallery view, so all participants remain on the screen, including the ASL interpreter. It's important that we maintain the gallery view, not speaker view, so Jose remains in view. If you wish to pose a question, please feel free to enter the question in the Q&A at any time during the presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will select as many questions as time will allow. This session is being recorded, so it can be shared with those who could not attend in real time. Assemblywoman Fernandez, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, this is a very important conversation to have tonight. Schools reopening is a big concern for not only parents, but everybody. I'm concerned. We should all be concerned. And this conversation I know will hopefully ease some concerns, maybe bring about new questions, but at the same time, we're all in this process together trying to figure it out. But I am Assemblywoman Nathalia Fernandez. I represent the 80th Assembly District in the Bronx, and that is right across the Pelham Parkway of the New York Institute of Special Education. So I'm very fortunate to have such a wonderful institution in my district under the leadership of Bernadette Capin. And the St. Joseph School for the Blind is not too far, just a little bit that way, and the Lavelle School is a little bit that way. So I think this area right here understands the beautiful need of such schools. And I'm really excited again to be a part of this conversation to address issues that, not the, I guess, the normal parents would go through, but again, also opening eyes and ears to the issues that may not be a direct concern or an immediate concern. So I look forward to this, and I can't wait to hear the discussion, the questions, and to learn myself. But I'm going to introduce our wonderful associate right here. She is the executive director of the New York Institute for Special Education, a school for the blind. That is Bernadette Capin. She has a lifelong history of serving students with hearing and visual impairments. And as far as I've been involved and experienced and seen her work, nobody has put more love and attention to these institutions. And I'm very grateful that Bernadette is still here and fighting the good fight for us. So Bernadette, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being here. I'll let you have the floor.
Thanks, Assemblywoman Fernandez, and we appreciate all that you do for the Institute as well as the 4201 schools. And we're really happy to be here tonight. 3 great schools in the Bronx, and you'll hear a little bit about each of us as we go on. The New York Institute for Special Education has been around a long time. On March 15th, 2021, we will celebrate our 190th anniversary. So it's amazing to think of a school that's been around that long. And I was thinking the school's been through a lot. They were through the Spanish flu pandemic, Civil War, lots of different things that they were involved in. So I know that we are ready for the challenge with COVID-19. At the New York Institute, we serve children ages 5 through 21 that are blind and visually impaired. So we offer kindergarten through 12th grade programs, and we have a program for children with emotional disabilities. And those children are ages 5 through 13 that are with us. The Institute serves children in an academic program, so we follow the regular New York State learning standards, leading to a high school diploma. Our students are successful at the New York Institute. We can say we have 100% graduation rate, and 85 to 90% of our students go on to college. And are successful in whatever their careers would be. So in addition to academics, there's so much that's needed for children that are blind and visually impaired to be able to be independent. So we do career exploration with students, job placements, socialization is really important, and that's something maybe we'll talk a little bit later. The COVID has been a challenge for the students that aren't able to have that opportunity for socialization. Really skills of daily living. So our goal is to make the students as independent as possible. And I would say the Institute is all about expectations. When you think about children that are blind and visually impaired, often people wonder, how can they do that if they don't see or they don't see well? And that holds the people back. The uniqueness of the New York Institute is everyone here believes that every student can achieve. So we need to figure out what to do. And it's not the student that has the problem, it's sometimes the staff, the adults, figuring out the creative way to help the students. So our goal is really focused on literacy, as I mentioned, and independence. So it's important that the children are literate, and many of the children are Braille users. We have some children that are combined. They would use print and Braille. And we have some students that are able to use just large print. Yes, we do have technology, and we have a lot of good technology for the students to use, but students need to be literate to be able to use the technology well. It can't be a substitute for learning Braille, or learning to read whatever they need in large print. So that's really important for us to work with the students in that area. We like our students to be able to participate in the community as well. So I mentioned before, we do have many of our students who have different work experiences in the community, and we welcome that bond with the community. A little bit about the 4201 Association. The 4201 Association is made up of 10 schools. 4201 is in the state statute. That's where that comes from. And we get together, the superintendents of the schools and occasionally our business officials, to really talk about the needs of our schools, to share information, and to advocate for our children. We receive money through the state to support our programs, as well as contracts that we have with the various school districts. So we work together to ensure that we have adequate funding for our students. And I think the most important thing with the association is an opportunity to get together to learn about what's happening in Albany. Like Assemblywoman Fernandez, she's involved with us. We visit with her. She knows what we're doing. And I think it's important for our children, as well as there may be other children that are blind and visually impaired, or children that are deaf in the community, that constituents want to know what services are out there. So that's how we can be helpful. Within our association, we also have a school that services children with severe physical disabilities. So we have those three groups that are part of the 4201 Association. As I said, definitely advocacy and promoting the needs of our students would be our primary goal that we work with. As Heather mentioned earlier, St. Joseph's School for the Deaf is one of our neighbors located at the Hutchinson River Parkway area. And Deborah Arliss, who's the executive director at the St. Joseph's School for the Deaf, her mom passed away and she wasn't able to be with us here tonight. So she sends her wishes to everyone. And Deborah certainly is a huge advocate for children that are deaf in the Bronx area and throughout the state. The St. Joseph's School for the Deaf also has a long history. Over 150 years of providing services to children that are deaf and have severe hearing impairments. St. Joseph's provides a day program for students, and they provide education for children from kindergarten through 8th grade. They also have a deaf infant program, and they service deaf preschoolers. And they're located in the Throgs Neck area of the Bronx. Their program, like ours, is for a 10-month program that the students come there. All of the teachers that work at the School for the Deaf are certified in deaf education. What's really important and unique about School for the Deaf in St. Joseph's is the opportunity for the students to have direct, continuous communication. And that would be in sign language, American Sign Language, as well as English. So the children are learning two languages, American Sign Language, as well as English. And that's really critical, that they're getting their language and communication throughout the day. And they're getting it with people who are well trained and have good skills in American Sign Language to be able to help with their language and communication. And that's really critical there. The school also provides other exceptional opportunities, special activities after school. I know that Deborah's quite interested in having the students do different kind of gardening activities, that they have special projects that they will have there on the campus. They have related services, occupational therapy, speech therapy, counseling as well. So they provide a well-rounded education for children from babies through children in the 8th grade. It's my pleasure next to introduce to you Rebecca Renshaw, who'll tell you a little bit about the Lavelle School for the Blind. Rebecca.
You're on mute.
Thanks. Thank you, Bernadette. As Bernadette said, my name is Rebecca Renshaw. I'm the Executive Director at Lavelle School for the Blind. We are also located in the Bronx, as Assemblywoman mentioned. We are the youngest of the three that we're talking about tonight. We've still been around for 115 years, though. And we serve children ages 3 to 21 who have visual impairments and additional disabilities. Dr. Kaplan and I often talk about the New York Institute for Special Education and Lavelle School for the Blind. We complement each other. The New York Institute for Special Education serves students who are visually impaired and follow the state standards, whereas Lavelle School students all of them follow alternate state standards. We're still very academic in nature. We're very focused on the expanded core curriculum, which is an additional set of curriculum needed for students who are visually impaired. It really teaches them social interaction skills, independent living skills, pre-vocational skills. So students that graduate from Lavelle have the opportunity for vocational careers and have experiences while they're at Lavelle in the community, preparing for that. We have, I mentioned 3 to 21, sorry about that. Our goal is the same as Dr. Kaplan's at the New York Institute for Special Education. Really, we're preparing our students to be as independent as possible. It might look different than the traditional form of independence, right? But they all have the right to be as independent as possible, and that's our goal at Lavelle. We have a very dedicated staff to make sure that students, no matter whether they have mild additional impairments or profound additional impairments, that they all have the opportunity to learn the skills to be as independent as possible for them. So thank you for inviting me to be part of this evening, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about Lavelle School. I'm going to pass it back to Assemblywoman Fernandez at this time.
So before Assemblywoman you start, I'm just going to take a quick pause. I'm going to remind people that we are in a gallery view. So if you've arrived late to the presentation, you should be seeing all of us on your screen. We're doing this so that the ASL interpreter, Jose, can be seen by everyone. And just to remind you, if you prefer to hear this presentation in Spanish, you can select the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to listen to it in Spanish. With that, Assemblywoman, thank you so much.
Thank you again. Yeah, to bring it back to, you know, the thing that we know is all here, COVID-19 and the pandemic that we are living in, it has really changed all of our lives. Right now it's different than what it was, and it was really different months ago. And I remember when, and it's funny to say, I remember when, like it was so long ago, but March was not that long ago, but it feels like very long ago. But this certainly has put everybody in a new arena, experiencing new challenges and looking for new solutions. So the state has, you know, taken as many steps as possible, because as you know, the state, you know, is the three-party gig right here. We got the governor, the Senate, and the Assembly. And, you know, as much as the governor can do what he can when he can, we still do our process in making sure we pass legislation, then puts it on the governor's desk to make it happen. So the state, thankfully, after one of these last stimulus packages, we were able to address a real problem that is still an issue for many families, which is home stability. And we developed a rent relief program to help families get basically a voucher to help pay their rent. Now, it's not the best program, and I'll even admit that, because it still doesn't reach everybody that needs assistance in this. We still have undocumented families that are unable to sign up for this program. And given that we only had $100 million to work with, it's still not enough for what is really needed for all families that are hurting right now. But we're doing really the best that we can, pushing for issues and current legislation to help us get into a better place, like finding new revenue. COVID cost the state a lot of money in making sure that we're purchasing PPEs, getting food to communities, because food insecurity became a big issue for many families. Families that never had to worry about, being able to buy groceries and bringing food home now are looking for food pantries. And some communities don't have food pantries open like that or frequent like that. So part of my job has been to really just address the immediate needs. And when schools closed, that dealt with making sure all families were online and able to learn remotely, and assisting families get in touch with their schools or their teachers to basically bring the classroom home. Working with the Food Bank of New York, bringing meal boxes to neighborhoods that are in food deserts, that don't have an affordable supermarket nearby or don't have a food pantry. So these immediate issues are really just band-aids, and we need to work towards a place that can work. And it's not easy. I'm going to admit that right now. It is very, very hard to find out what is working for everyone, and what is safe for everybody, because safety is the number one priority. So now, as we go into the questions, the concern is, how are we going to start school again? Do we need to stay home? Is it safe to go into school? And what is best for my child? And I know it's a tough decision on many families on what to do, and some families don't have an option. Some families need this assistance, especially for our students that have the extra need with visual and hearing impairments and special needs. We have to figure out a way to bring that back to them, because the last thing we want is our children to be behind on their education and missing, these educational opportunities. So I think we can get back into the questions with Bernadette and Rebecca, and see how we can get through this together, and maybe come up with new suggestions in the plan reopen.
I'm assuming I'm supposed to talk again. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's good.
So yes, Lavelle, we've struggled to figure out what's going to be best for our students and our staff. Something unique not unique, I should say, but something critical to the decision for all the 4201 schools was the fact that we will have to be within 6 feet of our students. And that's impossible for us to maintain that social distance. They rely on us for navigating the environment, for hand-under-hand instruction, for feeding, for self-care skills. And so to think through all that needs to be in place to make sure that we are mitigating the risk of any sort of infection by keeping staff and students safe has been the biggest challenge. Our plan is to go back. Our plan is to reopen our doors, staff coming back on September 1st, and students returning in person if they choose that on September 14th. Remote learning in between that. The parents are given the option if they want to keep with distance learning or whether they want to send their child in person, and I respect that decision. Whatever's best for that family. We will still provide a great education. It's been challenging since March, but I think we're getting pretty good at it. Each week get a little better. So, Bernadette?
I'm sorry if I.
No, yes.
One thing that I think all of us have gotten better at is, the cleanliness habits of using our safe hand sanitizer and being aware to using it frequently. And I know everybody it's known that yes, we need to take all precautions to constantly be cleaning, constantly be wiping, constantly checking temperature, and all these new requirements are going to need assistance. So like I was saying, going back, the state needs to figure out how to help you, because schools need protection, PPE. Maybe the students don't have it. Maybe teachers don't have it. Maybe we need to make sure you're getting an extra, allotment to keep wiping things down and everything. Like it was discussed. What was asked to me by another like college student. I'm not in school anymore. I'm online learning, but why do I still have to pay the same tuition of an in-person class as opposed to the online class, since now it's online? And the reality is, like, a lot of schools, even universities, are ill-equipped, to provide the tablets and the access and all the needed information and resources to properly learn. So, everybody is going to need the assistance, and to make sure that we have a new curriculum that fulfills all these needs physically, in class, and emotionally even.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good point about the online. I'll just speak to that for a minute. I mean, I think we've learned a lot since we had to close in March, and what's helpful for different students, and some people respond better than others. We have been able to work with the various publishers to get digital copies of our books so that it will be easier for the students when they're remote. And the staff have been really improving their skills in Google Classroom as well as Google Meets to interact with the students. And the families, of course, will ultimately make the decision if the students will come in person or stay home. And much like Rebecca mentioned, we are planning to open for those students that will be attending, and try to stage them in so that we don't have everyone arriving on the first day, so that we can see how some of the plans would work out, and make sure that people feel comfortable. I think it's been a long time since people have had to be in person, so there is that comfort level to try to reintroduce there. I think for children that are blind and visually impaired, the social interaction and being with other people is really critical. I mean, that's something that we really focus a lot on. So you can get learnings at home, probably definitely not as good as face-to-face, but I think they miss out on that interaction. And I think so many of the students, once they go home, it's fairly isolating. It's not like a neighborhood school where they maybe have other friends in the community that they interact with. I mean, their friends often are here, and when they come from all over the city, like our students come from New York City as well as 19 other school districts, that they're not having that interaction. And that's really important, that I think the students have that social interaction. For people that are blind and visually impaired, and I believe also for people that are deaf. I mean, you can be a great scholar, but if you don't have social skills to be able to interact with other people, you're really left behind. And sometimes these are things you have to teach. If you're a person that's blind and visually impaired, we all learn by watching other people. So that if you're not seeing, you don't know what those social graces are and how people interact. They have to be specifically taught. And those are hard things to teach remotely. So we need to think about that going forward for our students. Rebecca made a good point about the social distancing. I think we will do the very best we can. I mean, all of our schools, St. Joseph's, Lavelle, and the Institute, we've all worked hard over the last several months to look at the classrooms, space out the desks best we can, buy new furniture, because many of our children work best in groups, sitting around a table. So all of those kinds of things you really can't have anymore. But there are those unique challenges for children that are blind, that you have to have some more physical interaction with them. So we've prepared with certainly with the PPE to be able to have more than maybe a typical school would have to have for certain activities that the staff feel comfortable and the children are protected. And we've been gathering these things probably since the end of March, knowing that the supplies were going to be limited as time went on. But that's really critical. Like some of the things that sound so simple about putting an arrow on a floor that people know walk this way. Well, that's not going to work if you're blind. So we've tried by putting a thin wire that we have taped over, so that will run down the center of the hallway. So students will know they have to walk on the right-hand side of the wall. And if their foot or their cane touches that tactile symbol, then they know they have to move over. Certainly there'll be more staff interaction with the children to, make sure there's that social distancing. We're lucky here in that we have a lot of outdoor space. So we see that in the good weather, that the students could be outside. I mean, even when they would take a break, we probably could have at least 10 different spots that children could be in. We're lucky that our class ratios in our schools are low. At the Institute, we have 6 children in a class, 1 teacher, 1 aide. So we are able to spread out a little better. So that is a plus in that kind of a situation. But we need to look at that closeness. For our people who teach orientation and mobility, that's an issue. Hopefully on the campus, the instructor is typically walking behind the student if they're having to move around. So there is some social distancing there. The cane can provide some social distancing, and for some of the students that will use a cane. And we purchased a device that an orientation mobility instructor can wear on their arm, and it has a small little strap that the student could hold on to. So it provides, again, a little bit more space between the person who's guiding the blind child. So there's a lot out there to be looked at. I mean, certainly the technology for both Rebecca and myself to make sure that they have adequate technology at home. It's not just that you send home a Chromebook or an iPad. They need to have, if you have an iPad, they need a keyboard. They may need to have a Braille display. All those kinds of things go into the reopening plan. And I'd say patience and adaptability will be the key in trying to figure out what we can do. And I know Deborah had mentioned too, at St. Joseph's, they had to get some additional furniture for their students as well as the PPE. So maybe Rebecca has a few more things she wants to add there.
Yeah, I'd like to actually add on to the what it looked like at home for remote learning. So for most of the students at Lavelle School, as I mentioned, they have additional disabilities and often rely on their parents to be part of the actual lessons. Like a typical school, you would set up the student, the child's iPad or computer and walk away perhaps, and the child does their work. It can't happen. Our students rely often physically on parents or guardians or family member or friend of the family to set up the computer or the iPad. And with virtual physical therapy sessions for a student who's in a wheelchair who has limited fine motor skills and limited gross motor skills, they really are depending on the parent to position them to practice there. So we really depended on the parents over the last several months. They deserve the credit. They're the ones doing it at home. And something positive though that has come out of this that I never would have seen it at the beginning. As someone in special education, you dream of the day where a parent's practicing what you're teaching at school at home. You dream of that so that they can really own that skill. And that's what's happened because the parent now understands the IEP goals better than they ever have before. It's not just words on a piece of paper that mean nothing. They understand what that trunk control, for example, or that reading the Braille, identifying Braille letters or whatever it might be, they understand what that is. And so there's many stories from our families of not a student regressing, but students making progress, because now the parent understands the goal, so they're practicing it every day, not just once or twice a week with the therapist. So there are positive things that come out of this, but there's certainly a challenge for our parents in particular. The technology piece also, 20% of our families when we started this back in the middle of March didn't have any technology at home, or had only a parent's smartphone to access the online lessons. That's complicated. And for a child who's visually impaired and has additional challenges, to access lessons that way. So certainly, as many have partnered with New York City DOE to get iPads into the hands of students. But it's still, those iPads don't have specific things for people who are blind and visually impaired. It's a template that's sent out on every iPad. So we have written grants to get iPads for every student at Lavelle School, so that we can put the right apps on it and have the right assistive technology on it for those kids who are visually impaired and need a different way to access that. So as Bernadette said, it's just we're all making this up every day, right? We're just trying to make the best decisions, and it's only by working together. I keep told my staff and my families that teamwork now is more important than ever before. We have to work together to make this happen.
I would definitely agree with that. And I think the same even for our students with the families. And, you know, a shout out to the staff, because they've really tried hard to make this work. I mean, I can think of situations where we were working with a child, the person at home was Spanish speaking, so the teacher wasn't Spanish speaking. So what we ended up doing was getting some of our teacher aides that was Spanish speaking. They would come into the Google Meets class and they would do the translation in there. So it truly is a group effort to make it work. I mean, it's you just can't have a child sit on their own, and particularly if you're blind, I mean, someone has to show them what to do. So that's the challenge. And definitely, as I said, shout out to the staff as well as the parents. And we're also in gearing up for going back. We have a small residential program as well. We have about 25 children that live with us here Monday through Friday. So we've tried to make accommodations in the dorm that if children return, every child would have their own room so that they wouldn't be going to other areas. And that's a challenge too for parents to decide, are they going to have them come back at all? Are they going to have them come back residential? So there were just so many things to think about that the typical school doesn't have to think about, let's say, on a day-to-day basis.
I agree with Bernadette about the staff. Really has taken a team approach. If you would have asked me back in March if we were going to be using Google Classroom and Google Meet for our students, I would have said, no, that's impossible. But guess what? Within a few weeks, we were using Google Classroom. And it took the team effort of the teacher and the aides and the therapists and the parents, you know, really working together. So I agree. It wouldn't have happened without all of their hard work.
I want to extend my appreciation too, because knowing how many hands are involved in, you know, creating a curriculum, one that students can learn easy from, but now you're kind of guiding parents, teaching parents how to teach your children. To hear that, you know, the progress has been made is so relieving, so refreshing. And I really just want to thank again all aides, students, and administrators to get us to this point and to keep, you know, the education very alive and relevant in our kids' lives. Because I know that that is a fear now and before, that, you know, our kids might be behind a little bit. But with, you know, love and attention like this, you've shown that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rebecca had mentioned about the parents and the therapy. I know that Deborah wanted to share that she found also with the families working with their children at home that they had more opportunity to learn American Sign Language. So that helps the children at home as well. So even though it's been a really struggle for everybody, I do think that there are many good things that have happened. And even for the children, we had an opportunity in the spring. The students always have a performance, a musical performance, and they were probably sad that that wouldn't happen. But the music teacher worked really hard to put together a virtual concert, and you could just see the joy and the hard work that the children put into it. And as Rebecca said, there were several parents that really had to help there, or it wouldn't have happened at all. You know, helping record, even participating with the kids. That I think it's those kinds of things when you see people come together that you realize things are possible, even though the road ahead is going to be challenging. I do think that we'll be able to weather it. I mean, it's to try to move ahead. I mean, the real goal is really the safety aspect and the health. I mean, I think if we can maintain a healthy environment, and if the virus stays low in our area, it should be encouraging for us to be able to move ahead. And I think that's what we have to watch. I mean, we plan to continue to monitor those numbers here. And I know Rebecca and Debbie as well. And we're going to look at the attendance for children and staff, so that if we see any kind of a spike happening, then you're able to make an adjustment so that it's not something that's running throughout the school. And in all of our situations, we're trying to have the children remain in a cohort. Like we would have our middle school and high school kids basically departmental, so they would be going from the math teacher to the science teacher, but we're going to keep them in their group and have those people come into the room. So then again, it eliminates all that movement around, and if there is an issue, fewer people are involved. So that's another thing that we're trying to work at. I know that that's an issue for some of the students, particularly for the middle and the high school students here at the Institute. The younger children have always been together for the whole day, so they're not going to notice it as hard. But for the other students, I do think that that's an issue. Maybe while we're on that, I'll like to introduce you to Ileana Mejia. Ileana is one of our students, and she might want to give her perspective on how this has affected her and what she sees might be challenging for the students going forward. So Ileana, maybe you want to share your thoughts there.
Okay, hi guys. I'm Ileana Mejia, for those of you who don't know me. I am starting my junior year at the New York Institute for Special Education. I have been there for about 11 years now, almost. So for me, changing to virtual learning was very difficult at first because I was so used to the classroom setting.
The host has asked you to start your video. Start my video. Default button. Now in. Zoom webinar. Window. Audio.
I've been here for so long. And change is always very difficult for any human being to go through. And a change like that, where now you go from going into a school building for 6 hours a day and then going home to being home, and classes being very spread out a little bit at times, and a lot of technological issues, internet issues. Those were things that I had to deal with when trying to do virtual distance learning. So it wasn't very easy, even for someone like me who is very adept with technology. I've been using technology to help my day-to-day life in school for a couple of years now, and it's been great. And even that was very difficult for me transitioning. But as the time went on, I started becoming more comfortable with the techniques that we were using. It also helped that the teachers I had tried their best to keep up constant communication, but also then sometimes communicating and making sure that things were getting through to your teachers was an issue for me and some of my friends who did distance learning. We had to try using new apps besides Meet and Zoom that we had never used before. There were changes on our classes, and we had to learn to work with other people that we might have never even really talked to. So it was very new, but it was also rewarding at the end of the year when we realized, you know, we did it, even throughout how hard it was, the struggles we faced, um, looking at all we had accomplished throughout distance learning. Um, so it was difficult, but we all kind of managed to get through it, and I think it has taught me, and I'm sure it has taught the staff and the administrators of our school a lot. I'm sure Dr. Kaplan could agree on that. It's definitely been a teaching moment these past couple of months.
It's true. What did you miss the most about not being here, Ileana?
I think it was very much the interaction with the the social interaction with my peers and with my teachers. Um, you know, in a Zoom meeting, everyone's kind of muted. It's a lot, or if there's internet, it's a lot harder to get your thoughts out. Like I remember there were times where my internet would start acting up, or my computer or my phone or whatever I was on, and I was not able to participate as fully as I would have wanted to if it was a actual physical class setting, and also not getting to see people every day like I used to. So it was all very, it was, that was probably what was hardest for me
Mhm.
in doing all of that.
In coming back, what do you think would help students adjust to the new environment?
I think it would help. I think I remember I saw the reopening plan, and I think it's very good. It's very detailed. I think that just, you know, making sure that that plan is enforced, and also a constant communication between the staff and the students, and making sure that, or even with the administratives and the students, so that everyone is kind of on the same page. Um, you know, because it's very difficult sometimes in this current climate. So just making sure that everyone is on the same page with reopening. Personally, I am coming back. Um, I feel that I feel like you and the rest of the administrators, Dr. Kaplan, have done a very good job in outlining a reopening plan. And I feel like if I come back, my full safety is ensured in coming back. So I think though, making sure that those safety measures are enforced, but also making sure that the students aren't just feeling like um, they have to be kind of stuck there. So like I know I spoke to one of the staff, and she mentioned that we are allowed to take breaks with masks, which is helpful because I know some students with asthma or other underlying health issues where breathing can become an issue. So that was very helpful to know. And, you know, also making sure that kids have a little, like 2 or so minutes out of the classroom, because I feel like it is also not easy for a lot of students to just stay sitting there. For me personally, I know that if I can get like maybe 2 minutes to even just step outside with a mask and a staff about 6 feet apart, I would be a little more ready to do work throughout the day than just kind of sitting there in one room. But I
That
think
sounds
that
good.
you guys have also done a good job with what you guys have in place.
That's a great help. Thanks for those ideas.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be a panelist. We really appreciate it. We're going to transition into question and answers if we're ready.
Mute my audio.
Hi. So we're going to take some time to do some question and answers. We have a few more minutes to do so. I'm going to read some questions that we had submitted during the registration process and touch on some questions that we've gotten along the way. If you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the question and answer box below or the chat box if that's more comfortable for you. I'll see either one. But let's get started. And I don't really have a sense of who should be answering the questions, so I'll let you guys jump in as you see fit. But let's take a first one. Are students and teachers going to be required to have a negative COVID test prior to returning to school? So will people have to go get tested and show that they're negative before they come to school?
I could kick that off, and then maybe Rebecca can say whatever. Within the guidance that we received from the State Education Department and the Department of Health, there were no written guidelines, no requirements that people would be tested prior to coming. In talking with our medical people here, we could have someone be tested on September 1st, and they could be negative. And then when they show up on September 8th, they're positive. So it's a matter of, you'd have to be testing constantly for someone to be able to do that. So I guess according to the CDC, the DOH, and the SED guidelines, really trying to maintain the social distancing, requiring masks, except for those people who are not able to wear masks for varying reasons, and then providing other opportunities. Let's say with some of our younger children or children who can't wear a mask, I mean, certainly the teacher can have a mask. We would plan to have also face shields available for those folks to give them extra protection. I think that's really the direction that we would take, but there's no written requirement that the people be tested in order to come to work. We will have each person, student and staff, we will take their temperature when they come here each day, and we will have an app where the staff are to respond to the health questionnaire. If they have any of those conditions, they're to stay home. If they answer yes to those items, and periodically we will screen the students for the same. So that's what we're thinking. I don't know, Rebecca, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, very similar. We're not planning to require COVID testing prior to returning for the very reasons that you explained. We are asking staff and students to complete the daily questionnaire daily. To complete it daily was my point. Both staff and students, and to take temperatures, encouraging families to take it at home and staff to take it at home prior to even getting on the bus or coming to work. But then again, once they get there, just in case, and monitoring that way.
So we have a question in the chat, and we got the same question in advance. Seeing that blind and visually impaired students have to touch a lot of items throughout the day, and there's a lot of interaction with physical items, how are you going to ensure their safety? And I suppose this comes down to cleaning. How are you going to address their needs, considering that they will be touching things more often than not?
Sure. Well, first, to go back to what Bernadette had said before, in a special education environment, you often have group tables, right, where everyone's gathered around a table, and the items that you're sharing are all right there, accessible with your neighbor that's right beside you. Well, the classrooms look different. First of all, now they are each of the individual tables that we had to purchase and set up. Each individual table for students in a room. So there's spacing between students, so that reaching over for your neighbor's item is less likely. So it then depends on what the items are. If it's something that can be cleaned, if it's made of a surface that can be cleaned, it will certainly be disinfected between each use. If it can't be cleaned, that each student has to have their own set. We've looked at that as well, depending again what the item is. So in our classrooms at Lavelle, we're having a specific bin, an area, or once a student uses an item, it goes into that bin to be disinfected to make sure it doesn't go on to the next student before disinfected.
I would
Bernadette?
say similar for us. We have, instead of having everyone pass around the glue bottle, for example, each student will have their own bin with all of those supplies in it that they need. After they use it, it'll be wiped down and put into their bin. Again, it's really does go back to cleaning. We've changed our cleaning schedule. Our housekeepers used to be cleaning during the day. We have some that will clean during the day, but the majority will be cleaning in the evening, so that things will be completely sanitized and disinfected when the people come in the morning. At this point, we're not having people go to their lockers for, again, social distancing. So the classrooms usually have a hook. So we're not wanting the children's coats to touch each other. So we've purchased a laundry bag for each student. So they'll put their coat, any other belongings in there in the laundry bag. So there'll be no touching back and forth there. All the rooms will be supplied with the Clorox wipes so that they're able to wipe down. So the staff are going to have to do that after different activities. So I think there'll be a lot of cleaning going on.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Oh, go ahead. You're on mute. Mute. I don't know if I can unmute you or not. Okay, while she tries to unmute, I'll ask another question. Parents are wondering if they'll be able to see the layout of the classroom before school starts.
I don't know that they would physically come here, but what I'm thinking to do is, we're in the process of getting everything together to put a photo blog on our website so that they will be able to see sample classrooms and also what would be the plans in the hallways and those kinds of things, so that they'd have an idea of what it looks like, as well as we can give some images of the dormitories as well.
Yes, sorry, I don't know what I clicked, but like the question box took the whole screen, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But what I was just gonna jump in and say my own little suggestion, only because again, this lovely little New York State bottle is right here. Let's get every student one on their desk, as much as they're moving around and, maybe picking up something for someone else or helping, always, clean up.
Right.
I'll put that request to Cuomo.
Excellent.
But that's a good point. I mean, we have more hand sanitizer machines around than I think we ever had. I mean, we do have, even when they come in the building, we have them on a stand that they'll have to clean their hands before they come in. So there'll be a lot of that kind of cleaning, I think, for touching things.
Yeah, because imagine, like you said, they're guiding themselves on the wall. So
Right.
walls got to be
right.
wiped down, everything
Correct.
that is touched.
And we did purchase, I think we have 4 of those deep cleaning machines that we will plan to use with that fogging mist in the classrooms as well. So that would be additional cleaning in the rooms.
We're doing similar things at Lavelle. We actually we had less staff on the day shift, so we are adding more staff, cleaning staff on the day shift to clean throughout the day, and doing the same thing with disinfecting in the evenings as well.
Can you guys talk a little bit about the day schedule? So there's a question about how to prevent or reduce exposure if teachers are going from classroom to classroom and there's commingling of individuals. Can you talk a little bit about how your scheduling is going to work and how to minimize that exposure to a lot of different teachers and staff?
I don't know that there's a lot of staff. I mean, they basically are going to have, their main subject people that would be going in, push into the classroom, let's say. And then depending upon if they have therapy, they would see those folks. So again, we're trying to minimize the people that they're going to have contact with in that realm.
we're doing the same. Even for therapists, for example, we have a pretty big staff of physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, all the individuals that need to service the students. And so they're going to be pushing into the classroom instead of pulling the students out, but we're scheduling them in there for block periods of time so that they'll see all of the students on their caseload in that room, then leave that room, disinfect, scrub down, whatever, before they go in the next room. So again, making sure that there's no cross interaction and making sure we're doing all the things necessary. The state plan does require lots of training for staff on sanitizing and PPE and symptoms, and we have all of that planned to take place when we return. Sorry, Assemblywoman, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and I had a question. What about recess? Like, are kids going to be allowed to take that time outside, knowing that we can't really monitor them for, as directly as they would be in a classroom? Has that been a discussion, or is now school just going to be school and then recess at home?
No, we were looking to have people be outside as much as we can. Before the COVID, we had started a program with the Greenberg Nature Center, and it was an outdoor gardening program for some of our elementary students. So we would continue that with the cohorts of 6 so they could be outside for something like that for probably an hour, 45 minutes to an hour at a time. As I mentioned before, I was trying to count up the other day. I mean, if we were to spread around people, we probably have 12 to 15 plots where we could put people outside to be able to play outside for a while and get air. That I think that's really important, that they be outside. Almost what Ileana was saying, that you need time out of the room just to relax, and certainly for the little ones to run around, and even the older ones using social distancing, being able to just chat with each other. I mean, they love to chat and just hang out. So I do think we have to make time where they have those opportunities. I can't say exactly what the schedule would be like, but we've talked a lot here when people come back that we need to ease people back into school. That, I mean, it's unlikely that the first day they come here that they're going to sit down and be talking about American history. That we need to figure out where the students are at, how are they feeling, what are they afraid of, just following the new schedule, and where are you going to wash your hands? This is the hand sanitizer. This is how you take your mask on and off, these kinds of things. So I think we need to build in some really positive, happy time to be back, to have that interaction, and the learning will come along. Those are things that we all have to learn how to do to be safe. So that's how I envision it, that we're going to create a really pleasant time to try to ease that stress of people having been separated for so long.
I love that you said that, because tying into, I think, what I said, how this is affecting us emotionally, for everybody, mental health is a concern now and later. And, PTSD is going to be real, if not already, in the future for many students and then parents and all that. So I love that you said, let's take the time to see where you are, how you feel, and how comfortable you are now in this new curriculum. Because with comfort that comes, openness, welcoming, the learning, and the new. So I love that you said that. Thank you.
I would just add the original question about, outside activities. We will be doing the same, encouraging students and staff to go outside when they can. We do have a big lot. We have lots of space outside that they could certainly be social distancing and keeping classes together. Of course, right before COVID hit, we got a very nice grant for brand new playgrounds. So we decided to proceed, and it just finished last week, actually. So it's a fully accessible playground, and I think our students will love it. And according to the guidelines, they can be out there just one class at a time. It's not full recess for all. It's
Yeah.
making a schedule so each class can get that outdoor recess time, but washing their hands prior, washing their hands after, making sure it's cleaned periodically, and but giving them the outside fresh air that they need.
I remember growing up, specifically like middle school, high school, can we sit outside, have class outside? You know, like it's so nice out there. And my teacher one day, this is high school, it was like either June, it's the end of the year, let us have class outside. And he's like, fine, we'll sit outside. And it was like the hottest day of the year. And we're like, we're just kidding. Please make us inside. So luckily when school starts, it'll be a little cooler. So outside, you know, would be pleasant.
So as you can imagine, there are a lot of questions that families have about reopening and going back to school. I know all of you have to have your plans online, and I'm sure that you're having many conversations in your communities about your plans and how this is going to work. We have hit our hour mark. And what I would like to do, though, before we close is give each of you an opportunity for one last word. We'll start with Lavelle, we'll go to the Institute, and then we'll let the Assemblywoman have the final word before we sign off. I'm going to shut my mic and my video off and let you all close the evening out. And for those who have questions that weren't answered, the Assemblywoman's email is in the chat box, and I'm sure you know how to reach out to both of the schools to talk about any questions that you might have that are outstanding and pertinent to your children who will be attending in the fall. So with that, I'll let each of you have the final word, and good night.
Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone this evening about all of our schools, our 4201 schools. You know, such a, in the news and everywhere is the conversation about going back to school, but you add the extra piece of kids who are blind or visually impaired and deaf or physically disabled, and all of the challenges like that group of students faces. And those are the students we serve, and you know, sometimes people forget about that. We're so focused on, you know, what we think is normal, and so I'm glad that we had a voice to share the challenges that are somewhat unique to our schools, and the dedicated staff that are willing to come back, knowing they're going to be within 6 feet of students, but knowing that that's what's best for those students. And I'm blessed to have a great team at Lavelle. We had a large group of people of every job classification at Lavelle put our reopening plan together. It wasn't an administrative task. It was everybody had a voice in figuring out how we were going to do this. And so now it's going to be trying it, and it will change, but it's all about giving it a try, having a solid go at it, and then adjusting. So I appreciate the time to talk with everyone about our students. I appreciate that. Bernadette?
I agree. Thank you so much for hosting us, Assemblywoman. I think it's really important that people hear about our types of students. As Rebecca said, sometimes they're forgotten, but they are part of the community and outstanding students. I mean, I think that's what keeps us motivated here. When you think of the struggles, I think Ileana gave an idea there, just keep plugging along and feeling that you're achieving. I think that's really what it's all about. And that's really from the parents and the staff that support the students. And I think people have worked really hard to try to move ahead. As you said, we have our plans online, and we're hoping over the next couple of days to have some more conversations with parents and staff as well to see if they have any other things that they want to share with us so that we can help them understand the plan even better. So the 4201 group, I think we've met all through the summer, twice a month as a group, to really share ideas about what's happening at the school and try to meet all the expectations of our schools and follow, was it 143-page guideline that we got from SED to make sure that our kids were safe. And I think the greatest challenge for us going forward, and many of us I think are in really good position at this point, is providing the appropriate PPE. I mean, just to get it, because some of the things are harder to get than others. And we'll keep striving with that. But I think I just put that out there that that's really important. Again, this was a challenge that came upon us as a 4201 association, and different schools are able to meet that challenge in different ways. It's a big expense of trying to get the things together you need. And depending upon the numbers of children you have in the school, you're talking thousands of dollars just for this, as well as the furniture and those kinds of things to make things safe. So I just put that out there so that, you know, I know the Assemblywoman is always there advocating for our schools, that people understand that. I'm sure the public schools as well, but we're sort of in a different category in that we can't raise taxes and get more money from our citizens. We're sort of into a certain mode there, but it's really important. We are equipped at this point to be able to provide, but you don't know what's going to happen down the pike or how much longer, you know, you have to do this. It could be the whole year. It could be 6 months. We don't know. But I know that all of the 4201 schools are ready to see their children come back. And I know at the Institute, staff that I talk to, they just say, I can't wait to get back there. And they are dedicated to the children and want to do the very best for them. So thank you again for hosting us tonight, Assemblywoman.
My pleasure. Again, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your knowledge, and your experiences tonight with our viewers. Like you said, 4201 schools are different, and we need to be aware of these differences so we can help every single student in the best way possible. Now, as we get towards September, I know every single day there are meetings, discussions, you know, discoveries, and every sought answer is being sought. But I really look forward to the best and hope for the best. You know, I know there is still a worry, but with teams like this, you know, we're putting every precaution forward and taking every precaution and making sure that students can learn in a safe environment amidst, you know, COVID-19. And, you know, if it really gets that bad, then we'll have to make our way back home and continue doing it. But I know that parents do need the assistance of having their children in school, and children do miss school. Like I've heard it from them, you know, talking to them. I miss my friends. I miss being there. And it's difficult to, you know, to say, let's get back in there, but, you know we need to try everything. So I look forward to a safe and healthy school year for students, for teachers, for everybody. And I just hope COVID's done and over with soon.
Right. Good.
Yeah. And I will keep advocating. You know, I always got your back on that because,
Right.
you know, as assembly members, we make sure, and public officials, anybody, at least me, I make sure we speak up for those that don't have the opportunity to speak. So, you know, you have me in your corner, making sure that our most vulnerable students are taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you, Eliana.